Scamilton update today. The Door Church has agreed to pay damages for their illegal production of Hamilton. We do not know how much for, but we do know, per Onstage blog, that Hamilton is going to be donating all of the damages that they receive to the South Texas Equality Program. So all of that money from the homophobic Scamilton is going directly to promote LGBTQIA plus kids in South Texas. I love this. I absolutely love this.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you for joining me for Think About It Thursdays here with Conversations with Taz. One caveat, I know tonight we were supposed to be going over the Espionage Act of 1917, but there was an influx of news stories, and I just don't have the time to do an extra show this week. So we're going to postpone the Espionage Act on Monday at the same time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so I'll go through everything there, take all the questions. So any questions you may have, anything in the news that you have seen, bring that. We're going to go over that on Monday. Today, we do have quite a bit to break down. And also, please excuse me, allergies are kicking my badookus today. So there seems to be, per usual, politicians are going crazy, and not only that, politicians are getting themselves in a whole heap of trouble here lately. Coming from ABC News, former Tennessee Speaker Quesada arrested in corruption probe. Tennessee's disgraced former House Speaker Glenn Quesada and his top aide were arrested Tuesday on federal charges including bribery, kickbacks, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. The indictments follow the abrupt resignation in March of Republican Robin Smith, who pleaded guilty to federal wire fraud charges involving Quesada and his chief of staff, Cade Cothran. Afterwards, speculation swirled about what additional charges might come in the corruption probe. FBI agents arrested Quesada and Cothran at their homes Tuesday morning. If convicted, they face up to 20 years in prison. Both pleaded not guilty Tuesday and received pretrial release with travel restricted to the Middle District of Tennessee unless otherwise approved. Urbane, what has gotten into you? And that's not the only politician in hot water. Here we go.
Senator Ron Johnson has confessed today to helping Trump use fake electors in a plot to overturn the results of the election. Johnson has repeatedly spoken out against voter fraud, which has been debunked, while being himself guilty of election fraud. Duh, right? The Wisconsin congressman is up for re-election this year, and current polls show him losing to Democrat challenger Mandela Barnes.
They are just, and we're joined by DMAC. These between fraud charges, being arrested, and let's not forget the biggest lie that led to the self-coup and the insurrection was the whole voter fraud. But the more we're seeing it, it's GOP politicians that were committing or attempting to commit voter fraud and the voter base of the GOP. Because let's not forget the gentleman whose wife had been dead and he cast a mail-in ballot in her name.
Gotta love that cemetery vote. Hey, Brittany.
I'm just like, you know what? Nothing baffles me anymore. And if you recall yesterday, you guys, we talked about breaking news of if you make $125,000 a year as a single individual, or I believe it's $250,000 or less as a married couple, you can qualify for student loan debt forgiveness. The link is in the comment section of this video where you can check to see how to qualify to ensure that you can do that. And there's an additional $10,000 being given to those who receive Pell Grants to go to school. The GOP has now lost its collective mind and once again is lying to the general public about how things go. So let's take a look at this and we'll be right back.
So
With our
Marjorie Taylor Greene is all fired up about this student loan forgiveness. She doesn't think it's fair.
But for our government just to say, okay, well, your debt is completely forgiven. Obviously, they have an agenda for that. They need votes in November. So the timing is a pure coincidence there as well. But it's completely unfair. And taxpayers all over the country, taxpayers that never took out a student loan, taxpayers that pay their bills and maybe even never went to college or just hardworking people, they shouldn't have to pay off the great big student loan debt for some college student that piled up massive debt going to some Ivy League school. That's not fair.
Oh, Marge, if you think that's unfair, wait till you get a load of this. Remember the PPP loans during COVID? Well, there's a company here called Taylor Commercial. Taylor. Oh, Marjorie Taylor Greene's company. So Taylor Commercial was given a loan in the amount of $182,000. And it was completely forgiven. Unfair, huh, Marge?
So I want to say this to Miss Green, and I hope you can hear me. Ma'am, have you even honestly done a hard day's work in your life? Because you keep referencing these hardworking Americans, but you keep fleecing people out of their money. Because as he just mentioned, you had a PPE loan, which again, I really think those should have been illegal, but we're not going to go there. That's not the topic of this discussion. But you didn't wind up paying back those loans. The banks didn't wind up paying back any of the loans that they got in 2008 when they needed to be bailed out, and that was taxpayer money. I heard nobody say anything about that. Nobody was up in arms about those two instances, but here you go getting all in your feelings because somebody who decided to actually educate themselves wanted to do better, and because we've been forced into this mode of thinking, oh, if you have an education, you can get a better job. So which is it, Marjorie? Are we supposed to be hardworking people, or are we supposed to get an education to get a better job? Because I really need to understand which is it. You can't have your cake and eat it too. But I'm done.
Well, let us not forget how she grifted her donors and her constituents so she could get a brand new luxury SUV this year. But also, coming out of CBSNews.com, this is what the GOP is missing. One overlooked part of the Biden student loan plan that could end horror stories. Although the Biden administration's plan to forgive federal student loans has centered on the government erasing $20,000 in debt over provisions could have an even bigger impact on students and college graduates. In perhaps the most significant change, the Department of Education is expected to propose a rule that would ensure borrowers make payments sufficient to cover the monthly interest on their student loans. That would address the problem of what is known in the trade as negative amortization, in which a person's loan balance keeps growing despite their consistently making payments. Consumer advocates have long criticized so-called income-based repayment plans, which are supposed to help make student loans more manageable and which are employed by about 1/3 of all borrowers for trapping borrowers in debt. The Biden plan addresses the problem by proposing to have the federal government cover unpaid monthly interest for people with income-based repayment plans, which would prevent their loan balance from growing as long as they make their monthly payments. And also, let me add this caveat. It is amazing that with all of the socialist programs that have been incorporated into the federal government for decades now, for generations, the GOP always acts like they're the only ones working and the only ones paying taxes. We all pay taxes. Therefore, we all should benefit from taxes. So why should I pay tax on top of tax on top of tax and I never get any relief? I never get to see the benefits of what I'm paying into.
I'm like,
But
oh, sorry.
but also, as much as you hear politicians, especially conservative politicians, bragging about their collegiate education, take a look at this.
MAGA world is raging against the degrees.
I believe the college cartel is no better than the Mexican drug cartel.
Advocating for this nonsense.
We should abolish the Department of Education.
And they don't want educators that are educated.
We would prefer people with real world experience, not saying, oh, I went to the School of Education somewhere and they taught me kind of how to teach.
Somehow I get dumber every time he speaks. The big question is, why are they doing this? Well, as we all know, college is the gateway drug to wokeism, transgenderism, even worse, critical thinking skills. They said it themselves.
School prayer is banned, but drag shows are allowed.
The idea pathogens that have been infecting the inner core of our society.
A magnet for a lot of ideology.
When in reality, this ain't nothing but a ploy to get votes. Turns out, the more you know, the less likely you'll vote Republican. Because knowledge is power. They want it all for themselves.
Like I always say, racism grows easily in a garden of ignorance and stupidity.
It's easier to control people if they don't know what's going on. That's honestly okay. Let's put it into perspective here. Let's take the royal family across the sea, right? Before England became what it is now, there were just people living there. There was nobody per se. I mean, it was owned by Rome, but even before then, there was people living there. They weren't really particularly having anybody over them or somebody, overseeing what they were doing. They were just there. They existed. The royal family came into being saying that they were better. And because these people did not know any better, they believed them. So now you got this whole line of secessions of paupers that said that they were better than everybody else, which is really not the case. Because let's be honest, at the end of the day, you die and I die. We all die the same. May not die like the same. May not die in the same way, but we all gonna die at the same time. We all gonna experience death at one point in our lives. And if to quote Shakespeare, if you prick me, do I not bleed? If you tickle me, do I not laugh? I mean, it's the same here, people. I don't understand what y'all ain't getting. What's not clicking, Stephen? What's not clicking? So,
The universe.
Well, that too. So when they say they don't want people who have actually gotten their education degree paid for it, in most respects, to actually learn how to actually teach children things, what they're saying is at the end of the day, what I think about how children should be taught is the only way.
Well, not only that, it's easier for them to grift and continue to line their own pockets and educate their own children to not be manipulated and continue to lie to the public if you don't know how things go. If one big takeaway that people should have learned during the Trump years and these past election cycles is how little United States citizens and residents know about the government and how it goes. And speaking of the government, Trump and these files it is the gift.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, but I wish it was giving. Here we go. Now this is a long one, y'all. Get comfortable.
So, friends, the odds of Donald Trump being prosecuted for mishandling classified materials just went up pretty significantly. Let's talk about that. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. This won't surprise you, but prosecutors like to bring strong cases. And some of the crimes at play regarding Donald Trump's unlawful possession of these documents involve proof that he possessed them. Now, I talked in an earlier video about how the law recognizes two kinds of possession, actual possession and constructive possession. And hypothetically speaking, if this dry erase marker was a kilo of cocaine, illegal narcotics, and I have it in my hand, I'm actually possessing it, and I could be charged with possessing illegal narcotics. But if this kilo of cocaine was across on the other side of my office, am I possessing it? Well, the law says you are constructively possessing anything that is in an area under your control, an area that you have access to, but it makes it a little bit more challenging, right? Because here I'm actually possessing it. If it's across on the other side of my office, maybe I can claim somebody else put it there. I leave my office door unlocked, so I didn't really possess it. I didn't even know it was there. Now, let's sort of move these concepts, actual and constructive possession, down to Florida, down to Mar-a-Lago. Let's start by assuming that there were some classified documents that had been stolen from the federal government and whisked down to Florida, and they were put in some storage facility on the property of Mar-a-Lago, a storage facility that Donald Trump had access to. But what's Trump going to say? You know how many people had access to that storage facility? I didn't even know they were in there. Never mind possess them, right? Let's now move the box of stolen classified documents into Donald Trump's office proper, in a closet that is off his office. What could he say? Well, I don't know who goes in and out of that closet. Maybe there are boxes in there. I never looked in them. But obviously he has access to and control over his office, so there's a stronger argument that he is constructively possessing things in his closet. What about if it's in his safe? Whole bunch of classified documents in his safe. What's Trump going to say? Hey, I'm not the only one who has the combination to that safe. Somebody else put those documents in there and I never saw them. In his hands. The classified documents were in his hands. As the New York Times reported, Mr. Trump went through the boxes himself. That's actual possession. And that's the kind of strong case that prosecutors love to bring. So, how about we start drafting up an indictment for Donald Trump for the many federal statutes he violated by unlawfully removing those classified materials from the federal government's possession, taking them down to Mar-a-Lago, and concealing them and refusing to give them up when the National Archives and then Department of Justice officials came calling for them, and refusing to give them up after he had been subpoenaed by a grand jury to return those documents. And ultimately, the Department of Justice, the FBI, had nothing left to do but secure a search warrant for those documents. How about we start drafting up indictments of Donald Trump for the many crimes he inarguably committed? Because justice matters.
Now, before we get into it, we do have a bit of breaking news regarding this. So, just in from CNN.com, memo detailing decision not to charge Trump with obstructing Russia probe. Former Attorney General Bill Barr concluded that then President Donald Trump couldn't be charged with obstructing the Russia probe because there wasn't any underlying conspiracy between his campaign and Russia, breaking with special counsel Robert Mueller's view on the matter, according to a newly unredacted memo released by the Justice Department. The 9-page memo was released Wednesday as a part of a lawsuit over public records tied to the Mueller investigation. A highly redacted version of the memo was previously released in 2021, but a federal court ordered the Justice Department to make the full document public. It would be rare for federal prosecutors to bring an obstruction prosecution that did not itself arise out of a proceeding related to a separate crime. Then top Justice Department officials, Stephen Engel and Ed O'Callahan wrote in the document, which concludes with a formal recommendation against charging Trump, which Barr signed and approved March 24th, 2019. That's the same date that Barr notified Congress of his decision not to prosecute Trump, which was later criticized by Mueller and legal analysts for cherry picking from Mueller's report. The memo contains a legal analysis that presented to Barr. Two federal courts involved in the public records case have concluded that Barr didn't actually rely on the memo for legal advice, never seriously considered charging Trump, already made up his mind before he commissioned the memo, and that he signed the memo after notifying Congress of his decision. Last week, in ruling that the full memo should be released, a federal appeals court described the memo as an academic exercise or thought experiment that meant to bolster public rollout of Barr's controversial decision against prosecuting Trump. The lawsuit was brought by Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, a government watchdog group. Additionally, from Politico.com, documents recovered at Mar-a-Lago were among government's most classified letters show. The National Archives found more than 700 pages of classified material, including special access program materials, some of the most highly classified secrets in the government, in 15 boxes recovered from former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. It is not an estate. It is a golf resort and National Historic Landmark. I will continue to correct this every time they try to make it seem like this is a personal residence. In January, according to correspondence between the National Archivist and his legal team, the May 10th letter, posted late Monday on the website of John Solomon, a conservative journalist and one of Trump's authorized liaisons to the National Archives to review papers from his presidency, showed that NARA and federal investigators had grown increasingly alarmed about potential damage to national security caused by the warehousing of these documents at Mar-a-Lago, as well as Trump's residence, to sharing them with the FBI. These records included 700 pages of classified material, according to the letter sent by the National Archivist Deborah Wall to Trump's attorney, Evan Cochran, and it doesn't include records recovered by the Justice Department and FBI during a June meeting on the August 11th search of the Mar-a-Lago premises. This is a firestorm.
Well, it just only goes to show you that when people think that we were the crazy ones in 2016, or better yet, when the Simpsons, the literal Simpsons, predicted this shenanigans in its entirety, mind you, literally said he would win the presidency. 2, that he would leave the United States in a financial shenanigans and shade. That's 2 for 2. 2 for 2 here, people. 1, 2. They literally predicted that. Whoever they got working for them, I need to know something. I need to ask some questions. Because, baby, you ain't going to tell me y'all ain't got a prognosticator working at that on that show.
And if you would like to see the letter, I believe it's 4 pages. I just posted it to my Instagram. The link is in the link tree attached to this. But Trump is like incurable herpes. That is a pandemic or an epidemic all on its own. Here are 3 videos coming hot off the presses from Florida regarding an ultra MAGA Trumplican, well, I guess you could say now, former candidate, Lauren Loomer. Why are their names always Lauren? Here we go.
About it. The official drink of America first. To the hostile takeover of the Republican Party.
Absolutely. 15 minutes later.
We are losing our country because of big tech election interference.
Is there a point to all this?
And I am pleading with the Republican Party to please start taking this issue seriously. Please.
It's time for you to go now.
Because the American people deserve representation.
Always remember, if you ain't first, you're last.
Laura Loomer, who is running for District 11 in Florida, lost the Republican primary, and she's upset, and she said that she will not concede.
I'm not conceding because I'm a winner, and the reality is our Republican Party is broken to its core. What we have done tonight has really honestly shocked the nation. We have further exposed the corruption within our own feckless, cowardly Republican Party. And that is exactly the reason why, right, I decided to run against the Rhino Republican, Daniel Webster. Do nothing, Daniel Webster. Yeah.
And yes, this is the same Laura Loomer who had the residents of the villages in Florida supporting her. And if you remember, several of those residents at the villages were arrested and pled guilty to voter fraud in 2020. And this is what she also had to say after losing the GOP primary.
It's a big tech election interference, and I am pleading with the Republican Party to please start taking this issue seriously. Please, because the American people deserve representation, and that's why I ran for Congress in 2020. It's why I ran for Congress in 2022, and it's why I'm going to keep fighting for all of you. I'm never going to...
Well, that's enough about Laura Loomer. Let them fight each other. This is Nikki Fried, and she lost the Democratic nomination to Charlie Crist, and this is what she had to say. We have to make Ron DeSantis a one-term governor, and now that means rallying behind Charlie Crist. See, that's the difference between the two parties in Florida. Vote blue.
It's Congresswoman Ilhan Omar's home, about to serve her with a sworn affidavit, swearing under penalty of perjury that she has never married any of her biological siblings. So let's go.
Yikes. Pretty much all you can say to that, huh? That's Laura Loomer, far-right political activist and self-described Islamophobe. Ugh. She's an internet personality who has also contributed to InfoWars, so a bit of a journalist too. Heavy quotation marks around the word journalist there. Her hate speech has gotten her banned from Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. She's been banned from PayPal, Venmo, and GoFundMe. She's even been banned from both Uber and Lyft after going on a tweet storm a few years ago complaining that she couldn't find a non-Muslim cab driver. Yeah, it just gets worse and worse. Laura here just ran for the Republican nomination for Florida's 11th congressional district against incumbent Daniel Webster, and she lost. But of course, she claims she didn't really lose. She's claiming voter fraud is responsible for her loss. She's saying the system was rigged against her, and she refuses to concede this election. Gee, where have we heard all of that from before? While addressing her supporters in tears last night, she claims, "I'm not conceding because I'm a winner." I'm getting some real Angelica from Rugrats vibes here. Are you guys picking up on that? The crazy thing is she actually got about 44% of the vote there. And back in 2020, when she ran for the Republican nomination for Florida's 21st congressional district, she actually won, but of course she lost in the general election. That still means people are voting for this woman and actively supporting her, and that's really alarming. But is this going to be the future of our elections going forward? Every time some far-right conservative candidate loses, they just claim voter fraud with no proof because that's what Trump did? Expect to see this move a lot in the upcoming midterms.
Her disappointment stems from the fact that the GOP's main platform is hate, transphobia, homophobia, racism, sexism, misogyny, you name it. It's hate. So of course she's going to be stunned and shocked because you had an ableist, misogynistic, sexual harassing racist as a president in this generation. And it's like, sweetheart, you ran in 2020. It didn't go well for you, but you got more votes this time around. So the next time around, how more disgusting is she going to get? Because she ran on the trope surrounding Omar and her being a Muslim woman.
Oh no, our table, it's broken.
But she's not the only disgusting person that has run and not been successful. You all remember Dr. Oz? Yeah. Ugh. Let's take a look at this.
So Dr. Oz just released this gem. If John Fetterman had ever eaten a vegetable in his life, he wouldn't have had a stroke. So that comment really pissed me off. Has nothing to do with the politics of it. It has to do with the fact that I'm a doctor, and so is Dr. Oz. And I know it's been many years since he's done anything closely resembling actual medicine. But publicly shaming patients for their diseases does not help our profession. It doesn't help us take care of patients. It doesn't help us establish a therapeutic relationship with our patients. It actually instills a lot of anger and mistrust in the healthcare system, and that leads to worse patient outcomes. I don't know. When I have a patient, I like to sit down and talk with them. I like to discuss their modifiable risk factors that they can work on to help reduce the risk of them getting a disease, or if they already have the disease, making the disease worse. And I'd also like to point out another thing as a doctor, because this really bothered me as well. John Fetterman's stroke was caused by an irregular heartbeat called atrial fibrillation. It's a very common arrhythmia in the United States. Essentially, your heart beats irregularly, and it increases the risk of blood clots forming in your heart, which can shear off and go to your brain and cause a stroke. That's what happened to John Fetterman. There are many different things that can cause atrial fibrillation, and I'm kind of surprised Dr. Oz doesn't know that, because he was, once upon a time, a cardiothoracic surgeon. So atrial fibrillation seems like it'd be in his bailiwick, but I don't know. Maybe he forgot his basic cardio pathophysiology after spending the last several years hawking useless garbage supplements. Yeah, and I get it. Like, he's trying to be a politician now, and he's in a race that he's most likely going to lose horribly, so he has to fight dirty and to, try to gain some votes. He's trying to, take a page out of the Trump playbook. I get it. But at the end of the day, he's still a doctor, and this behavior is really unbecoming of a physician. But, I don't expect much from the guy who hawked all of those shitty supplements and then had to go in front of Congress and testify that they actually didn't do anything and he lied to people. So I don't know, maybe he would make a good politician. But hey, if you're in Pennsylvania, don't vote for Dr. Oz. Vote for John Fetterman, because God knows we don't need any more crazy people in the Senate. Okay? Well, have a great day.
I like Dr. Eric. He's pretty cool.
And I know the question keeps coming up, why do women still vote for Republican? Don't worry, we're going to address that. We're going to run the ad first, and then following that will be a video by a former Republican voting woman who's going to break that down for you.
Style is the answer to everything. A fresh way to approach a dull or dangerous thing. To do a dangerous thing with style is what I call art.
As I'm scrolling through TikTok, I came across this video asking the question to Republican women, why? And I had to laugh because I've been a Republican my whole life. I have voted Republican in every single election until 2016. I did not vote for Trump. I knew what he was about. I knew what he would do to this country. And that was the very first time I voted Democrat. And since then, I've educated myself. And I've realized, I think the reason I've been Republican my whole life is because my family is Republican. And I've heard the Republican rhetoric my whole life and how horrible liberals are, how radical liberals are. And now that I've started paying attention, I find it to be a bit hilarious because I don't think that liberals are radical at all. Liberals are just asking for equal rights for people to live as who they are. And the question really does become, at what point do Republican women start to question what Republicans are doing for them? Because they have voted against women every single time. And when it comes to women's issues, I always knew the Republicans were against women. I always knew they were against pro-choice. And that has always been sacred to me. Because if we don't have the choice to do what we feel is right for our own body, then we are not free. And Republicans have become extremely radicalized when it comes to this issue, making all of these laws about how there are no exceptions, there's no right to travel, and now they're coming after contraception, which is not only used for birth control, it's also used to regulate your period, it's also used to help with cramps, to help with PMS. There are all kinds of issues that it is used for. But you know what? They don't care. Because you know what? They don't care about women. They've proven it over and over again. And I watched this video, and I'm going to tag him here. And yeah, he has lots and lots of specific incidences when Republicans voted against women. So go check out that video, give me a follow here, and please just start questioning things. Just start questioning things.
Can I ask you something before you go in there? What was Miss Frizzle's famous line to her children?
Which one?
What would she normally say when they were, exploring? Ask questions, make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
But that ask questions, she meant that. She was just like, ask questions. Don't just take it don't take my word for it. Ask the question. Don't just sit there and just, oh, well, they said it, so it must be right.
Here's the thing. When you're conditioned that you have no power within your home, in fact, there's so many Karens running wild because they're trying to find power elsewhere. And you're housed and not raised.
Yep.
Because most white women seem to be having children because their womanhood is attached to motherhood, even though they may not have maternal instincts. And they're only one generation into raising their own children anyway. They are at the infancy of figuring out parenthood. You're not going to ask questions. You're not going to buck the system. You're not going to do that. That occurs with education. That occurs with your self-esteem being
evaluated by you and not somebody else.
It's not so much that. It's your self-esteem being flourished and it being okay for you to have self-esteem regarding the things that you do, not what you do for others. And I'm not saying don't be a good person, but think about how many women, their entire identity is tied to a husband, a father, children, and all of these things that are outside of themselves and what they really have to offer and bring to the table. So you hear a lot of these people, oh, I vote Republican because my family has always voted Republican. Okay, well, what do you agree with in the party? And all they do is spew what they've heard so many times. And it's not just white women, because I've witnessed black women do the same thing, regardless of where they lie on the spectrum. You hear them regurgitating what their parents have said, what their grandparents have said, what their husbands say. And it's like, you have to be able to question things. If you can sit there and nitpick and question your friends from the rooter to the tutor about an outfit, question what
Man.
actually affects your life, and stop going, oh, but he loves me. Does he? Does she? If they're willing to vote against your rights and the betterment of your life and convince you to do the same. But we got a bit more breaking news that just came in from the Hill. White House calls out Green, other GOP critics on how their own loans were forgiven. The White House on Thursday called out Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene's, Republican from Georgia, criticism of President Biden's plan to forgive some student loans, noting that the Congresswoman had Paycheck Protection Program loans forgiven. The Biden administration's official Twitter account shared a video of Green knocking the just announced debt cancellation in a Newsmax interview as completely unfair. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene had $1,853,504 in PPP loans forgiven, the White House wrote, referencing the Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, a lifeline extended to help small businesses stay afloat during the COVID-19 pandemic. Data from ProPublica shows the loan and accrued interest for Green's company, Taylor Commercial Inc., which reportedly would go to payroll, was forgiven. The Hill has reached out to Green's office for comment. The Biden administration is forgiving up to $10,000 in federal student loan debt for Americans earning less than $150,000 per year and up to $20,000 for Pell Grant recipients earning less than $125,000 per year. Biden also announced yet another extension of a freeze on federal student loan repayment and interest accrual just before the August 31st expiration date set when the deadline was last pushed back. For our government to say, okay, well, your debt is completely forgiven is completely unfair, Green said in the Newsmax interview, which aired Wednesday. Taxpayers shouldn't have to pay off the great big student loan debt for some college student that piled up massive debt going to some Ivy League school, Green argued. That's not fair. Biden responded on Wednesday to reporters' questions about whether the debt forgiveness is unfair to those who had already paid off or chose not to take out loans, taking a swing at tax cuts on the rich. It is fair to people who, in fact, do not own multi-billion-dollar businesses. If they see one of these guys getting all the tax cuts, is that fair? What do you think? Biden said after his remarks announced the plan. The debt relief move has garnered praise from Democrats, while Republicans have criticized the economics. The White House Twitter account has created a thread below its response to Green's criticism, with similar responses to other congressional critics of student loan debt announcement. The congressmen whose PPP loans amounts were revealed include Representatives Vern Buchanan from Florida, Mark Wayne Mullen, Oklahoma, Kevin Hern, Oklahoma, Mike Kelly, Pennsylvania, and Matt Gaetz, Florida. And here's the thing, their debt forgiveness, we are paying for.
Just saying.
And first of all, are you running for office to actually serve the people, or is this a side hustle?
Side hustle.
Like, is your main focus your small business? And why did you need a bailout? You still have income coming in. You are still garnering revenue because you were the anti-maskers that didn't want to shut down for COVID. So you were still making money. What did you need a bailout from?
She needed a bailout to wash the money.
I'm talking about all of them as a whole, but yes.
I'm talking about all of them.
And since Marjorie Taylor Greene was brought up, if you remember last night, we discussed that her home was swatted the other night. But there are some details that seemed a little hinky. And I wasn't the only one that was like, one of these things is not like the other, and 1 + 1 seems to be equaling 15 in this instance. Not sure what I'm talking about? Here's a video with a lovely breakdown.
Let me make this clear right now. I don't condone anybody calling in false police reports. That being said, what happened in Georgia last night?
And I jumped out of bed, threw my clothes on, and I picked up my gun. That was my instinct, because normally I answer the door with a gun, especially if it's someone that I don't expect coming to my home. But for some reason, I had this weird gut instinct to not take my gun with me to the front door.
Marge, something seems a little fucking sus here, okay? Because you never stop talking about the Second Amendment and how great guns are. Yet, when people are walking around your house at 1 a.m. and you don't know what the fuck's going on, that was the time that you decided to not take your gun to the front door. Sus as fuck.
And the officer standing there, he said, "Ma'am, are you okay? Is everything okay here?" Came up the steps and told me that someone had called in to the 911 call center here in Rome, Georgia, and had reported that someone had shot they said either her husband or her boyfriend 5 times in the chest in a bathtub.
Ooh, so which one was it? Your husband or your boyfriend? Which one? And the 5 in the bathtub? That's very specific.
You know, they were sending the police to supposedly go help, but then they called back a second time and said there's children in the home. There's children in the home. So
because if somebody gets in the chest 5 times and is in a bathtub and the police don't show up, and then it takes a second call for someone to be like, there's kids in the house, for them to show, something seems way the fuck off.
And I was very upset. I could not believe someone would do that. I was shocked. Because not only did they put my life and my family's life in danger, they also put the police officers' lives in danger. And so whoever this person is, they deserve to be locked up.
So let's just recap the night's events, okay? A 911 call was placed saying that you had murdered your husband or your boyfriend, they weren't sure which, to your home. They didn't get there fast enough. Then they called and said children were in danger. And then you spring out of bed at 1 a.m. because you hear people around you, grab your gun, but then you think, I'm going to leave my gun here and then open the door? Marge, you know damn well who did it. You know who did it because you would have answered the door with your gun had you not known what the hell was going on. So while I'm glad nobody was hurt, oh, Marge, anything to deflect and fearmonger, right? Anything to deflect and fearmonger. Wow!
And let's not forget the little caveat that was released that during one of the 911 calls regarding the swatting of her home, it was stated that the person did it because of her transphobic bill that was anti-trans children. Like, out of all the buffoonery that she has tried to put before the floor, out of all the things that she said, as disgusting as she's been, now all of a sudden, and it's like, do you think fear-mongering is going to get this bill passed? Do you really think someone is going to take it seriously? Because I'm pretty sure it was written on construction paper with erasable markers.
I just think that this woman, and I'm going to keep plugging this show because I really want to get this done, but I think I may have to just do it on YouTube. I don't think I can do it on TikTok. So I think what I'm going to do is when we get off of here, I'm going to ask you some questions about how we can do something, and then we can go from there. But it seems to me that these people don't take into account that there are still some of us who actually critically think and will literally take apart her entire statement to be like, yeah, this don't sound right. This ain't adding up. Because as far as I'm concerned, so let's say by some absolute miracle, this actually happened. If it did, it did. I'm not saying it didn't. I'm just saying. So where's the police report? Why didn't you bring that on the show? Because you could have gotten a copy of it.
Oh, the police are investigating. They released a statement.
You could have gotten a copy of that. Be like, well, see, this here says somebody to call the police twice on me. Nothing. No facts, no anything. Then you sat there and be like, they came into my house and they could have endangered the lives of my family and themselves. Baby, they came to you guns holstered. Who were they who was endangering your family? Who? Second of all, you white. And you're a white woman. They ain't busting in like they did to that black woman. Did not even give her an opportunity to get dressed. She sat there naked for a good almost 20 minutes asking them what is going on. And nobody paid any attention or mind that she was stark nude. But okay, go off, woman. Because as far as I'm concerned, you and your former your friend of me now, because y'all aren't even talking now. Y'all could kick rocks with no shoes on, because I'm tired of each and every one of y'all coming on this internet spewing this shenanigans. I hope each and every one of you gets fired in November. All of you.
Here's the thing. It's looking like she orchestrated this.
That's what I'm saying.
The swatting happened, but the math isn't mathing. It's not mathing. It's looking like she's behind it. And should a proper investigation happen, which is a long shot, but should a proper investigation happen, it's beyond time to censure her, but it's also time. Come on, Congress. It's time to start moving to remove some people from their seats. Like, how much more they have laid out all the evidence to be the nails, the coffin, the paint,
the burial plot
for the casket. Come on now.
I'm just like, here's the thing, and I want everybody within the sound of our voices to honestly listen. Please, if you're watching, share this video up the yin yang. Blow this up. I need everyone within the sound of my voice to honestly understand me. You I want to make sure it's understood. You have the power to honestly make an effective change for your life. If you keep voting for these people, nothing is going to get done. Everything is going to be an argument. Everything is constantly going to be weighed, measured when it does not need to be. I'm not saying that you don't discuss, but the discussions that these people are having are not worth the paper they are printed on. Stop voting for these people. When you vote for them, you are voting against yourself. You're cutting off your nose to spite your face. Stop it. Because if you keep doing that, see, y'all gonna watch. These Gen Zers ain't playing. They ain't got no chill. And the Gen X's are just like, we got you. Go ahead. Y'all go off. We gonna back you up. We got you. Because at this moment, both of them together are dangerous. Dangerous, because Gen X does not care. They have literally zero caring left. Zero. Like, it is, that goose egg is so big that they're like, yo, we just gonna back them up because we just gonna be the muscle. We gonna let them do the tight, but we gonna be the muscle. And I'm just like, y'all watch and see. That's why, because there's what's the name of the dude from Shark Tank, Mr. Wonderful, whatever his name is. I got a video planned for that one. Ooh, baby, it's gonna be cute. Said, if you quiet quit, you're a loser. I said, excuse me, sir. Let not the person who did not want to scrape gum off underneath the table from his first job throw stones. Let not the person. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be garnering your money because you worked hard for it, stealing it, most of it, but that's neither here nor there. But I'm just like, you're going to sit there and not let your children at least somewhat? Nah, Negro. Nah, Negro. I'm pretty sure, baby, them children is going to contest that will up the yin yang, and they ain't even going to play. And I hope they do. Because that's just sickening and wrong. Because you mean to tell me that you're not going to even provide for them at all? What kind of father are you?
What was the point of the hard work? If you're going to return your family to ground zero, to back where you began with, what was the point of the hard work?
That's what I'm saying. I'm
That's
just
like
like,
building a company, and then when you die, you decide to dismantle the company. What was the point of all the sacrifices you made? What was the point of the debt that you incurred? Not just financial debt, but emotional debt, etc. What was the point?
what was the reason? What was the reason?
Well, we got two last stories to get through.
Let's go.
So there was an AI artist that was released from their record contract, and you all
Oh,
should find
Capitol
this.
Records?
You all should find this quite interesting. Here we go.
Unfortunately, the nightmare scenario I've been warning about for months is officially coming true. This is FN Mika, an AI avatar rapper with over 10 million followers on TikTok, and he was signed to Capitol Music Group. The topics he raps about are incredibly sensitive to the Black community, such as police brutality, and he even uses racial slurs in his lyrics. Except the human behind this avatar isn't Black. As I've said time and time again, avatars present an opportunity to exploit marginalized identities. And if we aren't careful, this could become a massive societal problem. People speaking on behalf of and misrepresenting experiences they've never had to go through, as well as exploiting and appropriating identities they aren't a part of. And while this technology will allow us to present our humanity to the world in new ways, which in some ways could be amazing, it doesn't mean we should wholeheartedly accept people playing different roles without questioning the ethics behind it. Who the puppeteer is matters. The person pulling the strings matters. And we need to think deeply about that. Thankfully, Capitol Music Group dropped this digital artist, but as we spend more time in digital spaces, from virtual concerts to AI customer service bots to our very immersive future in the metaverse, we'll continue to encounter these types of issues until we establish the ethical boundaries of avatars.
And coming from the Daily Beast, Black artists sound off on why AI rapper FN Meka was so horribly offensive. Artificial intelligence disrupted the music industry this week when a major recording label signed and then quickly dropped a robot rapper who casually dropped the N word in their lyrics. Many Black artists felt the decision to sign the AI rapper in the first place was a racist slap in the face. Real talk, anybody who was involved with research, development, and signing the artist at Capitol Music should have their resignation submitted or their jobs terminated. Rock singer Ali Atkins of Ali A and the agency in Phoenix told the Daily Beast, because that just means you don't get 50 fucks at the music. You just care about making a dollar. FN Meka, the rapping robot, was created in 2019 by Anthony Martini and Brandon Lee, two non-Black men who are co-founders of the virtual reality record label Factory New, according to Double XL magazine. The digital rapper, who had tan skin, flaunted green braids and a faux hawk and tattoos that were inked on his shaven head, in between his eyebrows, and under an eye and down the side of his face, suggesting gangs designs. He wore a septum ring, a gold grill, and a black puffer jacket that that has long been emblematic of hip hop culture. His eyes shone a bright neon turquoise. McQuay Morton, a 15-year-old pianist who has trained at the Washington Jazz Art Institute and currently attends the Governor's School for Arts in Virginia, insisted FN Meka is an offensive representation of Black people that caters to stereotypes while disregarding the diversity and versatility of Black musicians. Representation means accurately depicting all Black people from all backgrounds, places, and experiences, he told the Daily Beast. FN Meka represents all the general stereotypes of what a Black rapper is. In an interview with Music Business Worldwide last year, Martini told the outlet that the digital rapper was created using thousands of data points compiled from video games and social media. The old model of finding talent is inefficient and unreliable. It requires spending time scouring the internet, traveling to shows, flying to meetings, expending resources, all in search of the magic combination of qualities that just might translate into a superstar act, Martini said in an interview. Now we can literally custom create artists using elements proven to work, creating increasing the odds of success. So basically, he's implying that Black people can only be successful in artistry if we're a walking minstrel show.
Wait,
because whatever algorithm you create to pull the data that you're looking for, you input what you're looking for. So the data points he was looking for were successful stereotypes in Black people. What was getting the most views? And we know, as much as Black people, especially Black women, are being cosplayed in on social media, that's what's used. That they're rage farming, and they know how to farm and harvest their crops very, very well.
Oh yeah, baby. They farming. So okay, I'm gonna say this, and Pinocchio, I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. I got basically he was like, I got no strings to hold me down, to make me smile, to make me frown. I'm just like, sir, here's the problem with your shenanigans. And as I told that last night, that hack who decided to be messy and cute, and then two people in my comments section decided to go in on the shenanigans. Well, one person in my comments section that I decided to go in on my shenanigans. I was just like, the fact that these people do not have the actual talent to actually do the job that they are quote unquote hired for just infuriates me. There are so many talented people on TikTok, Black creators especially. I'm not saying that there aren't some white ones too. Don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is people who actually have talent are not given the shot or the due or the fair process to actually get ahead. You get these mediocre or not even that, getting these leg ups for doing basically the bare underneath minimum, and they get these massive contracts. Like, no, like, you know what? Offense. Wholehearted offense. Dixie D'Amelio is trash. And the fact that she decided to copy this girl's dance only to get fame and views off of it and not even credit that girl for who created it is utter ridiculousness. Which is why last summer, best summer ever. Because when that Megan Thee Stallion song came out and not one Black creator made a dance or anything to that, they were useless. And I enjoyed every minute of it. Every last minute. It was glorious.
Well, speaking about people being combative towards Black women and having no talent, introduce Miss Lena Wilson. And first of all, internet, shame on you. When she tried to victimize herself by putting out a false narrative regarding a Black woman, Amanda Stenberg, you weren't really all that riled up. In Black community, I'm not talking about you. But the moment you all found out that little Miss Lena here was a terf and she was getting exposed all over Twitter and Reddit, now you're pissed. But let me read you an excerpt. She's always been this way. Always. She has done this over and over, and so many Black women have called her out for being awful and over-sexualizing them, even at Smith. But she does not care because she can play victim even though her dad is Mike Wilson and she went to one of Tampa's best schools. Give her the littlest bit of criticism and she's like, well, you don't understand my position as a lesbian, blah, blah, blah. Even though she acts like lesbian relationships can't be abusive when compared to cis-het ones. Because she has a following of mostly young, white queer women, she can let them fawn all over her to drown out valid criticism. The "you did something wrong, so you're mentally broken and it's your fault" is seriously a page out of her playbook. She did this to her housemates and to her partners. My therapist at Smith had to be like, you are not in the wrong. She's also a TERF. She was in a Facebook group where she was trying to convince trans men that they were actually lesbians.
Wait a minute. Just talk. I'm gonna be right back.
Yeah, because nothing says transphobic like equating your gender, someone's gender, to their sexuality. being a man does not necessarily and automatically mean you are attracted to women. Just like being a woman does not mean that you are automatically or instinctively attracted to men. There are people who are asexual. There are people who are pansexual. There are people who are very much queer, as myself. But yeah, she is that level of dense. That level of dense. And if you have not listened to this week's Tastic Tuesday, it is a few videos back, or just go into my link tree and click on the link and listen to it from the source.
You know what to say.
Yeah.
You know what to say.
Go ahead.
No, you got to say it.
Hydrate.
Ma'am, I'm going to need you to honestly shut all the way up. Because the fact that you decided to come out your mouth and say something that is utterly ridiculous and invalidating to someone in your own community, you ought to have your card revoked. You know what? Tribunal. The tribunal needs to meet. The tribunal needs to meet, and they need to discuss on removing her from this community, because that was just disrespectful, wrong, and again, invalidating. Who gives you the right to say that to them? Who gave you the authority to say that to them? Because as far as I'm knowing, you ain't their mama, you ain't their cousin, their sister, their auntie, nothing. They are nobody to you. They are not any relation. So the fact that you came out of your mouth to say, oh, you guys are lesbians, I was just like, excuse me? So you're telling me that I'm still a woman? Is that what you're telling me? Because if that's what you're telling me, ma'am, you can kiss my entire behind. My entire behind. And I hope somebody said that to her. Because I'm just like, what? Excuse me? No, baby. Here's the thing. The next time you got something to say to somebody, you better hope it doesn't come across my docket, because, baby, I don't care if you are a lesbian. I will read you for the absolute filth and make you wish that the day that you said that, or whatever else you say, had never happened. I'm getting real tired of these white women always acting like they the victim, like somebody did something to them, when they don't realize the trauma and mess and shade and shenanigans and craziness and foolishness that they leave in their wake when they cry victim for no reason. When somebody's holding you accountable for something, that is not an attack. It's holding you accountable for your mess. Stop acting like you don't cause problems. Stop acting like you are the absolute end all be all. You're not. Everybody goes through something, and it's not up to you to decide when that something is important or not important. Mm-hmm. Okay? And stop when black women or any other woman outside of a white woman has given you a boundary, your best bet is to respect it, because, baby, some of them do not have the politeness button on. And you will catch those hands. I'm getting real tired of people when we say this is my line, don't cross it. And then when you receive the due wrath that comes with you crossing that line, y'all feeling like, oh my God, all I did was, what did you do? I told you no, and now you want to complain about the slap on the hand that you got because I said no. When I say no, like Yosemite Sam and Elmer Fudd said, when I say whoa, I mean whoa. What is it that you didn't understand in that sentence? I don't know. But go ahead. I'm done. My soapbox is over.
Oh no, we're just at the part of the show. Final thoughts.
Well, girl, I done gave a dissertation. It's your turn. Oh, Jesus.
As always, thank you all for joining us here on Conversations with Taz. Do not forget to join me tomorrow night for Freeform Fridays. I'm a little afraid of all of the blind reacts that you all have sent this week. And within about 30 minutes of wrapping this, I do have a very specific request for a topic to be discussed over on TikTok. So be on the lookout for that video, or possibly a live. Not really sure how I'm going to handle it, because while we've been on air, I've gotten some more messages regarding this topic. So let me review it. And as always, each one teach one, each one reach one. Till tomorrow, y'all.
Hi, darling. Sorry about that. You got my message. What? Yes, but you obviously didn't get my memo, Black. Oh, I did, but I just sort of thought it seemed a bit like a cold. Yeah, when privileged white people get together dressed in white, it's like the KKK.